we go.
live. All right. See, I only had to press it once that time. StreamYard's done some cool stuff.
But you had to do a whole.
I did have to do a whole thing. Yeah. Once it wasn't fucked up, it worked great. Welcome back to the Talking Average Fitness Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sam Burns, and as always, I'm joined by my friend, my compatriot, and dad bod fitness, Mr. Kevin McCarthy. Kevin, how are you today, sir?
We're doing wonderful, Sam. So did a run this morning at some paces I was proud of. Work's going good, family's going good. Avery's a menace to society.
Absolutely.
As she should be at almost 1 year old. So but yeah, everything's going great. How are you? How's you like 20 pounds heavier? You got like a pump cover on or something?
Yeah, right. I'm sitting at 207 right now. And
wow.
Yeah, 207.
That's for you.
It's huge. This is the biggest I've ever been. 207 and about, if you want to believe an in-body scale, I'm about 14% body fat.
I think an in-body scale is probably as accurate as you can probably get without it being a DEXA scan.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably as good as you're going to get. I mean, in terms of margin of error on either side. It's likely much more accurate than like the bathroom scale that we have has like the two little metal electrodes that you stand on.
Yep.
And so I'm sure it's much more accurate than that.
I saw, thank goodness for Mike Israetel. I saw something interesting that he broke down like how to judge weight and like how worthwhile are calipers versus a BI bioimpedance analysis or anything like that. And he's like, truth be told, at the competitive bodybuilder level, they don't look at any of that stuff. They go by the scale and they go by what they see in the mirror. And he describes this very interesting process where they are essentially looking at muscle pump as a byproduct of glycogen fill. And so when a bodybuilder is in a cut, they will stay in a deficit until their muscle pump post-training is not what they want it to be. And then they'll come out of that. They'll go to maintenance or they'll go slightly hypocaloric for like 3 to 7 days, just so that they can recharge the body. And then they'll go back into deficit. And so they can kind of seesaw down using this method, preserving muscle mass, staying primarily out of a catabolic range where the body's eating muscle, and then avoiding diet fatigue and exercise fatigue that would be a part of a normal cut if you just straight up deficit for like 10 weeks.
I would say, because if you get to like weeks like 8 through 12 of a cut, because you really don't want to do like much more than like 12 weeks of a cut unless there's like some serious like health issues that are like, hinging on you losing X weight. But
absolutely,
it's like you don't really want to do more than like 12 weeks of a cut down before you do some sort of break. And you just like weeks 8 for 12 and you're like halfway through training, you're like, I'd like to die right now. Like I would rather be run over by a train than, because it feels terrible, because as you said, everything's depleted. So that's interesting. Bodybuilding is interesting, and it's so much more of a science and like so much more intricate than I think most people realize. It's not just dry scooping pre-workout and then doing 7 million bicep curls and then injecting your homies in the butt with some testosterone. Like it's not that simple, as much as we might like it to be.
I mean, that'd be amazing if that was the case. It was not Ronnie Coleman, the guy who won 8 Mr. Olympias after Ronnie Coleman did.
Jay Cutler.
Not Jay Cutler.
Bumstead.
No, before him. So like the 2000s era.
I'm at a loss.
He was on Armchair Expert recently, and he was talking about like the dangers, so specifically cutting weight as they're going to like a show. So part of that cutting weight is cutting water, where because water weight is a huge issue. And so he's like, you have to be incredibly careful because it takes so much water to process X amount of grams of carbohydrate. And so you've got to have at a minimum the amount of water necessary to process the carbohydrates you're intaking, and then probably a little bit above that. And like anything beyond that, anything below that, you're heading into a dangerous area where you end up with like blood pressure issues and stuff like that.
Yep.
Wild.
That's
Wild.
it is wild how like and then you look at was it like Lane Norton? We'll talk about how
Yes.
you don't need to do a dehydration, whatever, if
Yeah.
you manage like, your calories and your salt and your everything like properly. It's like, because the biggest thing, right, is like water between the muscle and the skin that makes it look puffy, makes it, look like
Yep.
excess body fat when it's not, it's just fluid.
Yep.
And so that's what they're trying to, because it looks, when you have like a pro bodybuilder on stage, it looks like their skin may as well just be like saran wrap. Like it's just,
Yeah.
paper thin shrink wrap to the muscle, all sorts of wild news. Like you can do that if you understand how to manipulate like everything else. But again, the simplest way is probably just to manipulate your water. But then you have the exactly that said the risks.
Yeah.
This is not at all what we were going to talk about before we get down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. Well, so remind me, I've got a spreadsheet that I have that is built out to like autocorrect my calories, because it's so ironic we're talking about cuts. Today is the beginning of a cut for me, heading into my travel season for gymnastics.
Right, because you're into exactly, for gymnastics.
Exactly.
I was going to say this when you were like, I'm 207. I was like, Sam's going to be on those rings just
just
holy
dead hanging from a bars, be like, I'm gonna need some help, guys.
Yeah. Sam, you're gonna need to do a lever. Nope. Not today.
None. No.
Nope. I've been too busy growing them booty cheeks with some
I've got
lunges.
a plan. I've got a plan. It'll be so real quick
sure
before I
do.
present.
No, go ahead.
Let's do this. Share screen. We'll do this tab.
Or are you sharing your
your
I'll
nutrition?
Just
do the thing. So here's Operation Dad Bod. So, and I'll make it.
Whoa.
Oh, damn it. I missed the wrong thing. Share screen. Yes. This tab.
So for like half a second. There it is.
Yeah. So what I did is from the beginning of my mass phase. So this is my mass phase. You can see down here. I tracked my weight, my body fat percentage, my skeletal muscle mass, my goal calories, and average calories. And the average calories is a little bit of data missing and some random bits, because like, sometimes if I was on a mass, like I didn't have data to track what I was eating, or I was like, you know what? We haven't eaten anything all day. I want a pizza. I'm not going to worry about the calories, that kind of thing. So I was able to track my weight gain, body fat percentage. Yes, exactly. Body fat percentage, skeletal muscle mass. I did the exact same thing through my maintenance phase, where my weight difference here was 2 pounds, and probably mostly water, I would assume. And then heading into my cut phase now. So I've got this little chart over here, right? So this chart, if you look up at all of this, will take the most recent weight, the weekly average, and use that in a calculation.
Like either like calories up or down a little bit, so you're not losing weight too fast to the point where you're like, getting rid of stuff that's you don't want to get rid of.
Exactly.
That's cool.
And I can actually.
So you basically did a spreadsheet version of Lane Norton's carbon system.
Probably. He has having not seen that.
Oh, so it's basically it's basically exactly what you just described, but like in an app. So
interesting.
It's like in a system on the phone, and you put in, like, you have to give it data for it to adjust its data, right? So like if you're not tracking like an asshole, you take your body weight once every 2 weeks, like it's not going to do anything for you. But for those that are like trying to meticulously, like really, really try and maximize the rate of return on what they're trying to do, it was like based on like your body fat percentage, your body weight, all that fun stuff. Like it would adjust your macros up, down, sideways where you needed to go to make it so that your like rate of loss and or rate of gain was within the parameters that you want. Right. Obviously, like if you set into the app that like I'm gonna dirty bulk this bitch, and the app was like 6,000 calories, go nuts. But apart from that, if it was like, hey, I'm trying to keep because you could put into it very specific, like I'm trying to gain, 5 pounds of skeletal muscle. With only like gaining 1% body fat, and then Carbon goes, captain. Like we're going to keep everything with it. Obviously, that process happens very slow. To put on 5 pounds of skeletal muscle with 1% body fat is a very slow process,
and is incredibly training dependent to boot.
Yeah. But like you couldn't be doing what I'm trying to do right now and do that. Like what I'm trying to do is preparing for a triathlon in the summer. And so it's a lot more endurance based. My training days, sometimes I aim for minimum 4. If I end up getting half decent sleep on my 24-hour shift, there'll be a 5th training day in the week. But at minimum 4 days of training. And like for me, believe it or not, the running is actually the more challenging part. Like I can run sprints. I can run sprints, until the cows come home. And because I have the rest time to recover, trying to maintain like a quick pace for like 6 miles, that's not my jam. So I do 2 training runs. One of them is shorter and faster or interval style stuff. The other one is longer and slower to just try and like just get my body good with like mileage and pastage, and let's not show up and blow up for the first 2 miles, because I've done that before. I went out when I first started endurance stuff last year for soccer. Like I was just like, running pace is just running pace, and in my head I know that like, yes, there's different paces for different distances, but I was like, I'm going. And I went for a 6-mile run, and my first 2 miles were at a 7-minute pace, and then the last 4 miles were not at a 7-minute pace.
Wow.
And so it was awesome. Anyway, so I've got 2 training runs, one shorter or interval based, one longer, more slower, just kind of aerobic type deal. And then I've got one long biking workout, again, just keeping it relatively aerobic. It also keeps my legs flushed as well, but biking's not an issue for me. And then one swim workout. And again, like I did 3 years of a whole bunch of swimming training in college because we had a pool, and why not? And so I also grew up on a lake in Maine, so I'm very comfortable in the water, good swimmer. So like that stuff isn't like, the challenge in the swimming is just going to be like just building up like a single effort distance type thing, right? Like it's trying to use intervals to make it so like you can swim a mile without stopping, which is something I've never done. The capacity may be somewhere hidden in there. It's just trying to pull that out type thing. Like I know how to swim, like my swimming technique is good. It's just being comfortable continuously swimming for that long. And so it's just kind of like using intervals and time domains to kind of build that stuff up, right? So those are like the 4 kind of like main training pieces. And then I have 2 days that I have completely off of work that I can like double up on some things and do like a conditioning thing earlier and then some strength work after. And so what I'm doing is basically like my twist on a conjugate method. There's an upper body day and a lower body day, and I change the max effort lift. Like it could be a bench press, could be a strict press, could be a push press, could be a strict weighted pull up, insert whatever, and then alternating between a squat and a hinge pattern for the lower body day, and then just accessory, just field massive. Try and balance things between like push and pull in terms of the accessory stuff, but like just do that kind of stuff. And if any skeletal muscle mass wants to be added, bonus points.
You won't complain about that.
As long as the muscle mass that I have stays and stays strong, then that's all I really care about. So for me, also doing some cutting, trying to lean out more so that the endurance stuff is, so I'm not 210 pounds just plodding along whilst running.
Like a Clydesdale.
Miles, Dude, I'll tell you what, a good pair of running shoes is life-changing. I didn't have a nice pair of running shoes. I just like, they're shoes that I can run in. They're not nanos, so that it should be fine. And you're just like, like aches, pains, whatever. I'm like, it's because I'm bigger. And then after Christmas, was like, I'm going to go get myself a pair of running shoes. Went to Marathon Sports, got fitted in size, and these are the type of cushioning you should have. And I put those on for a run, and I was like, wow. It's like, this is life-changing.
Yeah, that matters.
Incredible. It's weird how that works.
Funny. Specialization.
Anyways, so yeah, that's what we're up to. I've also been playing around with intermittent fasting, which has been interesting because I've known about it.
And I have a question. Is this
Okay.
intermittent fasting or is this time restricted eating?
I'm gonna say the second one, time restricted eating.
Right.
Then,
So the reason I
looks like
ask is
it's a
because go ahead.
16-8 protocol. So,
Right. So it's
um,
it's time restricted eating.
yes.
Right.
So there we go.
So the reason I ask is because my understanding of true intermittent fasting is you intermittently fast. Now,
Yeah, for like a day
for like minimum 24
or or or,
hours.
or, or longer. Yeah.
Yeah. And like,
Okay.
there's some people who are like 2 days to 5 days, some, crazy
Yeah.
numbers in there.
Yeah.
But
Some people do
everything
survive.
short of a 24-hour fast, it's all just variations on when you ate your last meal within the day, within the 24 hours. So it's like when people say, "Oh, I'm eating keto," when really they're just eating high fat, low carb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. So I guess like as far when I say like intermittent fasting is usually just kind of like as a general
Yep.
whatever, like it's a protocol that tends to fall under the intermittent fasting like umbrella, so to
Yep.
speak, but it's the time restricted eating protocol within that, if that makes sense.
That does make
So
sense.
sorry for being unspecific.
No.
I miss this. I miss this where I say things and Sam goes, "Do you actually mean what you mean?" And I'm like, "Well,
Fuck you,
kind of.
Sam.
No. What did you just say to me?"
That's hilarious. Okay, so we actually
Okay.
had a point to all of this. We had
When
a
we started, yeah.
when we talked about what we wanted to talk about before we got on this fucking podcast, and then like always it runs off the rails. So what we settled on, and we could decide if that's what we want to talk about or not, but what we
Yeah,
settled on
let's
was
rock and roll.
the 5 rules for clients that we have as trainers. And
Mhm.
there you could create sets of rules for anything, but if I was gonna say like, hey, you want to go hire a trainer, right? Do not be surprised if your trainer has rules. If they're, this is my opinion, if they're worth their salt, they will have
Mm.
rules. They will have and it's not, I'm not talking about
Expectations,
yes,
like
yes,
yeah,
yes,
like
that.
expectations. Like, okay, so for me to work with you, here's what I, as the trainer,
Yes,
need from you, type thing.
absolutely.
Yes. So
Okay.
that's what we're getting at here.
Yeah,
Expectations. So,
expectations.
um, so are we? I just realized you spelled clients Clinettes in the title.
Damn it.
Sorry, it's fine. Um,
Now I know it's not.
um, so we're just gonna go back and forth, like you go, I go, you go, I go, like kind of like
Mhm.
our 5 things, I guess, expectations, parameters, however you
Yep.
want to
Yep.
phrase that for if we're going to take on a client, here's what needs to happen. And kind of similar to our holiday eating episode last year, this isn't going to be in a particular order because one of us may say something and we go, oh yeah, that's so like this
Yes.
isn't like ranked most important to least important or vice versa. This is just 5 things, which may potentially be 10 things if we think about things differently, but it's probably going to be like 7.5 things because we probably agree on
Probably gonna
most
have
of it.
some things that are the same.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first? Or do you want to go second?
I can go first.
Okay.
So my first thing is like when you're so I'm going to assume in this one that like someone's already been like, hey, I'd love you to train me, and I go, cool, I'd love to be of some service. Let's chat. And so the first most important thing to me, I know I said I wasn't going to rank these, but this one in my head is the most important, is to make sure that both me as the trainer and Sam as the client are clear and realistic on like the goals
Mm-hmm.
that Sam has, type
Yep.
thing. So what I mean by that is I've had lots of conversation with different clients. This wasn't necessarily a client of mine, but a young coach and athlete at a gym that I
Mm-hmm.
worked at who expressed interest, and he goes, I want to go to the CrossFit Games. Like I want to compete at the CrossFit Games.
Sure.
and he's a great athlete, very, very fit in the
Yeah.
CrossFit space, right? But like gymnastics background, Sam would be very proud of him. And he sat there and he was like, yeah, like how long do you think I can, or I think he was like, how long do you think until I make semifinals? And I was like, I and I was, again, I'm gonna be honest with you, I would plan on 6 to 8 years. And
Yep.
you could see just the hope and light like leave his eyes. Really 6 to 8 years. And I was like, look, man, like it can happen sooner.
Yep.
Again, if all planets align, your Mercury's in Gatorade and off you go. Like it.
How old is this guy, by the way?
And he was 22.
Okay. All right.
So it was just to like, understand it, and like you could pump him and be like, oh yeah, man, I think you can make it next year. And then he could, oh yeah, like it. And he goes and trains like a psychopath. It's like, but you're almost kind of setting him up for more failure, because then not if, when he doesn't make it that next year, you're like a little bit crushed.
Yeah.
And then you continue for, so like, just wrap your head around this being like an 8-year process.
Yeah.
To get where you want to go.
Yeah.
And if it happens faster than that, fantastic. And I'm not saying it can't, because if you work really hard, your nutrition's dialed in, your home life's dialed in, you sleep dialed in, like everything's dialed in, then you can do it. But me as the coach would be doing him a disservice if I wasn't honest with like setting the expectation of how long it's going to take. So if Sam is like, hey Kev, I want you to train me, I want to lose 30 pounds, and I go, cool, man, I can help you lose 30 pounds. And Sam goes, I want it to happen in 2 weeks. Like,
is surgery an option?
like, yeah. So I, as the coach, would be doing Sam a disservice and say, hey man, I love that you want things to happen quickly. Everyone wants things to happen quickly.
I love that for you.
If you could lose 30 pounds in 14 days, then I wouldn't need a job as a trainer anymore, because I would make bajillions of dollars.
Yeah, for real.
Selling the express version of Ozempic. But here's what it's going to look like. Here's what it's going to take, and here's how long it's likely going to be for you to lose that 30 pounds. And then also go over like, hey, if you want to lose the 30 pounds in like 2 months, this is what it looks like.
Yep.
If that's not realistic or sustainable for you, like, hey Sam, like all you're allowed for lunch is to look at a piece of broccoli. Like it, if that kind of restriction isn't realistic, then here's what it looks like, and it's going to take 6 months type thing. Like, and then Sam might say, well, fuck you, I'm going to go find someone else. But then that's totally on him. Again, like then it's not someone that I want to work with. So that's my first one. Be honest and realistic. Yeah, honest and realistic about like expectations and goals.
I like that. So I guess mine could dovetail. It could be an extension of that. Like, after being honest and realistic about expectations and goals, the first thing is, regardless. So typically when people come into a professional arrangement, they have a goal. I want to achieve X, Y, or Z. I want to lose X weight. I want to back squat, whatever, such and such a skill. My rule is, regardless of what our goal is, once we decide on the goal, it must be a specific goal, and we decide on a timeline, I will do an assessment based on, I will not take anything you say as serious or trustworthy. I will begin with you as if you just appeared in front of me. Because first of all, memory is not a reliable system for communicating accurate information. And then 2, the ego of the human being so often, not all the time, but very often, wants to protect that person from the fear of judgment from the trainer. And so if, say you say you want to get stronger, you want to squat X amount of weight. And I say, cool, what's your recent 1 rep max? I have to assume that exactly.
405.
Your recent 1 rep max is either inflated by 10 to 25% or is anywhere between 6 months and 5 years old. You know?
So I was gonna say, like, people will disregard when you say the word recent. Like, that didn't register in my brain. And for me, I'm like, my best ever is 405, 4 years ago. And so, but I gave Sam, man, Memorial Racks 405, and Sam goes, sick, dude. Let's like, here's all your percentages, and then I die because
yeah.
ugh,
And that's
fun.
so like if I don't do that, if I just take you at your word, then even a small inflation or white lie could seriously affect your training process and thus your ability to reach that goal. And so I saying it very bluntly, I will assume that you're a liar and I will discover the truth for myself. Yeah.
Take the Dr. House approach.
Absolutely.
Yep. Love that.
Patience
cool.
lie.
Second, yeah, exactly. All patients lie. Second rule for me, make sure you're the right fit for that client.
Ooh,
make sure you're the right coach to help them before you take them on, right? So if, again, I'm going to use pretend Sam's the client. Sam goes, I want you to train me. I go, cool, man. Like, let's fire it up. Let's sit down and chat. And Sam goes, yeah, you see, like, what I want to do, I want to be able to do, that 1 minute strict muscle up thing I've seen on Instagram. Like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And I go, all right, sweet, man. Like, that's an amazing goal. I love that for you and what skin you have left on your wrist. Like, I'm not a gymnastic expert, honestly. Like I can coach competently in the CrossFit space, what Sam would love to call CrossFit style gymnastics. I am not the expert by any means on like true, strict, virtuous gymnastics. In terms of being able to coach things in points of performance, I can look at something and be like, that's a virtuous muscle up and that one's not.
Sure.
I know enough to do that, but I would not be able to confidently or competently take someone from the non-virtuous muscle up and like know how to tweak things and adjust things to make it virtuous in the same way that Sam could. And so if that client comes to me and goes, I really want like all this gymnastics stuff, I'm gonna be like, you know what? That's an amazing goal. I'm not the coach to help you.
Yeah.
And that's something that's, I feel like, rare because as coaches, we all want to make more money, and you do that by having more clients.
Yeah, you don't want to say no.
However, if I'm not the right person to help them, and 2 years from now they're still no closer to their 1 minute muscle up, I've just taken all their money and done them no service. And I mean, if both parties are okay with that, then I wouldn't imagine they would be. But like, at least for me, like I wouldn't be okay. Like, so I would refer them to someone who can. So be like, hey, there's this real, like, you're going to have some great training sessions. You may get distracted because he's incredibly good looking, but his name's Sam, and he's going to help you get that muscle up because he's a gymnastics expert in the way that I'm not. And I would connect said potential client with Sam to see what we could make happen there. So before you take someone on, before you embark on a journey, before you start taking someone's money, make sure you are the right fit to help them with their goals.
Yeah. That's a great one. I like that. So I'm gonna go specifically to gymnastics now. So the real rule is all work that is performed will be primarily strength oriented. And by that, I mean, an exception to this would be endurance. And we've talked about this before.
If you have an endurance athlete.
Yeah. Like even so, less so if you have an endurance athlete, it's because I'm not an endurance coach. I'm not a Chris Hinshaw. So that's outside of my expertise. If I had an athlete or a client for whom they wanted to, say, improve their 2K time, and they didn't already have a world-class 2K time, okay, I understand enough to get you to improve that. But more importantly, it's part and parcel with that would be strength training regimen, right? And in fact, if I do have an endurance athlete who comes to me, almost all of the work that we would do would be strength or mobility oriented because they don't need more.
You're already running you're already running your brains out there, man. Like you just need to do a
Absolutely.
squat once. You good.
Absolutely. You know, so my rule is
Yeah.
it must be strength oriented. And really the way that manifests itself, because a lot of times I get people who send me messages or people who want to work with me because they are interested in developing gymnastic skills. And my rule is I will not teach you to kip if you can't strict. And that turns a lot of people off because people want the skill, not the
All the
requisite strength,
foundation work.
all the foundation
Yeah.
work that goes with it. And I've seen enough now, and I've worked with enough people, and I've read enough about the dangers of doing that. Where, as an example, for anyone who doesn't understand what we're talking about, let's take the strict handstand push-up, right? So if you want to get your handstand push-up, right? I'm not going to teach, and you can't already do one. I'm not going to teach you how to kip a handstand push-up to overcome your lack of upper body pressing strength. We're going to work on your upper body pressing strength and hopefully get you as close as possible to a single strict handstand push-up rather than what's the best way to kip so that you can do 5 before you have the ability to control your body. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's,
Where you use your neck as a spring.
yeah, oh, Jesus. And the handstand push-up is probably the worst example. But I've had people who are like, I want to know how to do ring muscle ups better or bar muscle ups better, and it's cool. Like what's your and ring muscle up is great because it's like cool. How many strict can you do? And they're like, what? Like that's a
Like that doesn't matter.
yeah, like that's a foundational skill, and especially if you think about swinging around at full body weight on a bunch of joints that are not strong enough, muscles and connective tissue are not strong enough to bear those loads at explosive
Oh,
speeds. Like we're just asking, and this is how fucking teaching people how to kip before they had strict pull-ups is how we ended up with a fuck ton of slap tears in the 2000s and 2010s, through CrossFit. And that's where that, CrossFit is dangerous joke comes from. So no, I'm not going to continue to be a part of that
yeah.
process.
Yeah, so the thing I thought of with that muscle up example is like if your shoulders aren't strong enough to like not only like control like make that rotation lay on
Yeah.
top of the rings, but if you're not strong enough to control like a solid amount of strict dips, like when you flang your body up over those rings, and all of a sudden, wham,
Yes.
into that
Yes.
position there because it's an
Yes.
aggressive landing. It can be an aggressive landing, especially for the
Yes.
first one. You watch some videos on Instagram of like people getting their first muscle up, and it's literally just like chunk just through my headphones. But
Yeah. Well, you want to know why
and
that
your
happens?
shoulders, it's like, well, because it's like a kick and then sit up. It's not a pull.
Well, yeah. So there is that. That's certainly a part of it. So
Okay.
many times, one of the things that we never assess is shoulder flexion or extension, right? So like
Right. Mm-hmm.
shoulder flexion, if I can lift my arm without knocking my fucking coffee over. So I lift my arm, it can without, I can get it all the way up here, right? But my shoulder
Yeah.
extension is not so great. And so if I do shoulder extension, I can only go back that far, right?
Yeah.
If I have my arm, I'm standing upright, my arm is back as far as it can go. With
Yeah.
my elbow as high as possible, I bring my hand forward and then bring it around to my body. That is the bottom position of my muscle up, which
Mm-hmm.
means I've got to be able to pull and press down to here before I can transition to the bottom of the dip because that's the limit of my fucking shoulder extension, right? Now imagine having a person who just slams and drops into this position, right? That is actually
Mm-hmm.
deeper than their shoulder extension. You're just asking for an injury.
Yeah.
Fuck that shit.
Um, is it my turn again?
Yeah, it's your turn.
Um, all right. So my third one is, and again, this is something you can like be like, I've done this with clients. Like I'll be clear about stuff. Like you're gonna do stuff you don't like. Like it's and I've had that conversation with people like, all right, cool. Like we're gonna get you where you want to go.
Yeah.
Um, like you're gonna do things you don't like. Like I've yet to meet someone who is like Bulgarian split squats are my favorite, or the thing that makes me happiest on this earth is burpees until I throw up. Like it,
Mm.
you know, it's but that stuff, it's effective. It works. Like, you're going to do stuff you don't like. If you hate upper body stuff, you're like, I'll squat 400 pounds. And you're like, cool, what do you bench press? And they're like 4 pounds.
Yeah.
Just because they don't like to do that kind of stuff. It's like, well, guess what? Like, we're going to do those things because you've got to get strong. This is going to get you where you want to go. Like, if like, I'm not saying as a coach, like, okay, cool, like, I'm just going to wreck you with all your weaknesses, because that's also not like an effective way to keep people motivated to come back and keep going where they want to go.
Absolutely not.
But you have to work your weaknesses. You have to work on stuff you don't like. You have to do things that make you uncomfortable. And so I'll straight up tell people about, like, we're going to do some stuff that you aren't going to be a fan of, you're not going to enjoy, but it's going to get you where you want to go.
For sure.
So that's number 3, is like, I'll just be clear with that. I'm like, you're going to work some weaknesses and do stuff you don't like.
Also, my number 3 can dovetail on that. And speaking of things that people don't like to do, nutrition will be a part of the process. Period. Full stop. And
I'll see, you took my 4th one.
Did I?
Yeah, that was my 4th one, was going to talk about, or at least talk about, like, hey, we're doing all this training stuff over here. We're also like, we'd be missing something. Greg Glassman, you say you only got one oar in the water if you're not talking about nutrition.
Absolutely.
So we're going to talk about nutrition here as well. So you continue what you're going to say, but that's my 4th one.
For me, it's, you either have to, if you're on a training plan of some kind, like you're engaging me to put you on a training plan of some kind, part of a training plan is a nutrition plan, which means I'm going to put you on one, or you have to already be on one that is robust enough to my satisfaction. I have to know that you're not going to either A, eat like an asshole, or B, starve yourself, and you're not enough protein, not enough fat, your hormones are out of whack, you're not enough carbohydrates, and you're, starving yourself, and diet fatigue is too fucking huge. Like, from the perspective of a trainer to a client, the service that I offer is far more valuable if it is more effective. And to use your analogy,
also, if it's just like the whole picture, like if you're doing the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So your outcome is far more likely to be achieved if we are actually working 100% of the issue, both the training and the nutrition. And I don't talk about, it's not on my list, but like, also, I want to know what the fuck's going on in your life, like sleep and shit like that. But if you say, no, I got a thing, I'll be like, cool, what is it? I'll be like, what do you mean? I'm like, you've got a thing. Do you have macros? You doing like zone? Like, tell me exactly what you're doing. Tell me what your calorie goal per day is. Because if you're just fucking off and eating 1,300 calories and you're as big as Kevin, like, homie, we ain't doing no strength training. We can do one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, plus, like, if I'm going to design the training program, like, also, again, like, as Sam pointed out, with like his all patients lie, like, people also, like, don't know what they don't know type thing. Like, it's like, if I know what you're going to be doing for training, and this is like how hard I want you to go in the whole thing, like, I also know, and again, like, roughly ballpark, good enough for government work, like, also know, like, what you need to be doing to fuel and support that, again, heading towards your goals, right? So, like, let me help with that. And then also, like, let's talk about your sleep and your stress management, because that affects the whole thing. If, like, if you're having like an absurdly stressed day, and here's where like communication with your coach comes in, right? If you're having like a massively stressful day, I have a 24-hour shift, and everything that could go wrong goes wrong. The next morning, it wouldn't be good for Sam to be like, all right, dude, like, we're doing 3x5K at race pace. Like, that's not what you should do.
No, not a great idea.
Isn't that gross? I have that coming, like, in my calendar at some point.
It doesn't sound like any fun.
It's not.
And you're doing
like
a shit ton of people that you're doing this with, right? You're like several people you're training this Ironman with. or try?
So I'm doing yeah, it's just we're doing Olympic distance triathlon, and as far as I know, it's just me and Mati. But we might have more people jump in.
Didn't
But
Kate sign up for an
I
Ironman?
can't. Yeah, she did. She's doing a separate thing now.
That's
Um,
she's
she's doing her own thing. She's doing. It's really cool. Like she's
Mhm.
fundraising for hurricane support for North Carolina, because that's where she's
Yeah,
from.
yeah.
She's got all these companies around her. They're like helping her. But she's doing a full distance Ironman in November, and she's training for a year to do it.
You know
Because
what?
see, the thing is, like,
Hats off.
that's my type of psycho right there. That's
Yeah,
why I love Kate so much, is because it's just like, who's the most unhinged Kate? Like, that's
yeah,
just
yes,
got the most screws loose, but like in the best way.
yeah,
um and so she's talking about like training for her, where like for me, I'll try and like maximize stuff. I can get like a strength session done in like
yeah.
30 to 40 minutes if I'm really efficient with
Absolutely.
it. um and I can even do it in my basement, and like, without having to go to a gym, like just kind of crank stuff out of my basement and be good. And she's
Yeah.
like, it takes me like 2 hours to get my strength work done. um
Oh
and then
God.
she's got like, running and swimming on the same day, which that'll come into play for me as well, as you start to
Yeah.
learn to try and like manage the transitions between different modalities.
Yeah.
Where you're like, okay, I've just swam for a mile, like what, how do I then continue?
How do I not be
uh,
a fish now?
so how do I not just get out of the water and just lay there?
Amazing.
um, and then also just like the musculature and like, refueling whatever's like going from X mile bike into,
Mhm.
you know, I think it's somewhere between like a 20 or 30 mile bike. I forget the just like the official distances, but
Mhm.
um, you go from that into a 10K run. And so it's like, you gotta like, even though it's still your legs, you gotta like change gears there,
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
which will be interesting. So as like right now, I'm just doing like it's like 16-week block of like just foundational stuff. So I'm just working
Yep.
energy systems right now. So
Yep.
just working energy systems, keeping things strong as best I can. And then once we get to like, 10 weeks out, okay, now we're trying to train transitions, fueling, try not to shit yourself.
The
Um,
sport.
like, yeah, if you train the sport for like the
Yeah.
10 weeks leading up to, or at least that's my plan. I'm also using this as an opportunity for me to learn and get better, because it's
Oh
something that
yeah.
I've not done before. So I'm
Yeah.
like, learning and doing some research stuff, but I'm also like, let's try this and see what happens. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a half decent test subject, and I'm like to think about things relatively objectively. So as I'm going through, I can kind of be like, this did work, this didn't work. So that's my plan. Is It was like when we decided to do a triathlon, it was like roughly 26 weeks out from the June-ish region, which is what we were aiming for, was to give ourselves about that time range to train. And so it's about like 26 weeks. So I was going to take 16 to like just work energy systems,
Mm.
like just work aerobic foundation, like
Yep.
keep base strength levels and everything healthy and good. And just kind of like slowly ramp things up to like a good spot to kind of build from. And then we train the sport. Then we train like, so that's where something like that, 3x5K at
Yeah.
race pace would come in. Cause you'd be going at like essentially your 10K
Yep.
pace, like for your race. And so you start to like train those types of things, and you would do, like some distance bike into some distance run at paces
Mm.
or at splits. And then my plan is to do a mini try, like a sprint, to like practice actual like race day transitions beforehand. So
Wow.
like maybe a month or so out, do a mini one,
Yeah.
which those ones aren't super wild. It's like a 300-meter swim, like a 12-mile bike, and a 5K run.
That's not bad.
And so now it's just to like practice, transitions and like your fueling and everything, and like
Yep.
make sure that stuff's dialed and good to go for race day. And then you finish your last little bit of like, training and tapering
Mhm.
for the race. So that's the plan. How good will it go?
Well, we'll find out.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I already gave my fourth tip kind of in with your third one, is that like we're going to talk about nutrition. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a whammy. So what's your fourth one?
My fourth one is compliance must be 80% or greater. Um, and
Ooh.
so there's a couple things predicated on. First of all, I have to know if I'm providing you training, right? And I'm providing you diet, adherence to your training schedule and adherence to your diet must be at or above 80%. If we can't get there, I'm going to assume that something else is going on in your life and we haven't had a talk about it yet. And now it's, is this a new thing? Has this been going on? If it's been going on, why wasn't it disclosed at the beginning? Because, like, for example, Kevin's an EMT. If Kevin, you didn't tell me you were an EMT and that you work 24-hour stretches at a whack, and then you're like, you're doing, 5x5 back squat and your numbers are way below goal percentage. And I'm like, what the fuck's the problem? You're like, I just haven't slept in 28 hours. Motherfucker. Like, that's really important. You know what I mean? So, like, if I'm doing my job correctly and you are being honest, I will know enough about your life, your obligations, and demands in order to be able to realistically structure the goal and the schedule to reach it. So it becomes part of the expectations conversation, right? And we can is my firm belief that if you're not talking elite level performances, you can get by with 80% or greater adherence for most things. You get into, you got the people who are like, I'm a semifinals CrossFit Games contender and I want to go to the games. I'm not that guy. Like, we shouldn't be talking. I will never get you there. Don't have any experience with it. Right. But if you tell me you want to lose 20 pounds and you have 6 months to do it, okay. Like, that's not an unreasonable goal. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. And so, so and everything, like I use a bunch of tools and stuff to make things easy for that, but like everything must be tracked. And so I can tell, like when I pull open my list of clients, it tells me last 7 days training adherence, last 7 days diet adherence, last 14 days for both. Like I can tell right off the whack. And so if we got a trend sub 80% for both of them, we're going to have a chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. There we
Yeah,
go.
man.
Ready for my last one?
Yes.
All right. Number 5. When you give the client the price to work with you, say it with your chest.
I like that.
Like, price yourself in a way that like is reasonable for like value for you, like,
For
like
sure.
how you value your time, your expertise, your everything you can do for this client.
Absolutely.
And be confident about it.
Yeah.
If you're embarrassed to tell someone how much it costs to work with you, then either you've set your price point way too high to the point where like you're afraid it's going to scare people off, or you as the coach have something psychologically to work on to like be okay telling people this is how much it costs to work with me.
And
And for what
that
they're
could
looking to
compromise
do,
their
because
performance.
maybe that looks right. And it's not that like you have to price yourself,
No.
super high for everything. Like if someone wants everything from you, like, hey, I want to be able to check in multiple times per week. I want to be able to, text you when I need, and adjustments here and this over there, and like all these things, like that costs more. That's more of your time. That's more of your resource, more of your expertise. They're gonna get a better result from it. The more
Absolutely.
they put in, the more you put in, the more they're gonna get out, right?
Absolutely.
But it's like that's just gonna cost more. Like, guess what, my guy? Like you can't just pay me $100 a month for that. Like that's not how that works. And sometimes it is the client's expectation. So you have to be prepared to have a conversation of like, look, this is why I'm priced the way I'm priced. This is why I charge what I charge. And here's what you're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're going to solve the problem that you came here to solve. But this is what it costs.
Yeah.
And if they're like, well, I can get it cheaper elsewhere, then go get it cheaper elsewhere.
Do it. Absolutely, you should.
And then so here would be my challenge: is go get it cheaper elsewhere, and then come back and show me the results you got for cheaper.
Yeah.
And if you got stellar results, you got everything you were looking for cheaper.
Yeah.
Like I'll use the nutrition thing for example, right? Like you could hire a nutrition coach for somewhere between 200 and 400 bucks a month is,
Yep.
I'm assuming, the going rate for a nutrition coach, again, depending.
Absolutely.
Somewhere 200 or 400 bucks a month, you can do that. Or you can subscribe to the RP Diet app for 15 bucks a month. And that's just one example. There's tons of apps. Don't come at me, but like just as an example, right? So you have your 200 buck a month coach, or 15 bucks a month for the app, right? If you try the app and you're paying 15 bucks a month and you can't be bothered to adhere to anything, then like you're going to get $15 a month results.
Yep.
You're going to get nothing out of it. But then you sit there and you go, oh, well, it's the app's fault, or it's this's fault, or it's, you know, it's because I'm a Pisces, it's whatever. If you had just gone with the coach, you would have gotten the results you were looking for. You just have to pay more money for it. So it's like there is that trade-off there. But there are some people who can just subscribe to the RP Diet app, and they're just the type of person that they're going to adhere to it anyways.
Yeah.
And they're going to get and then they're going to get the results they were looking for. And that's awesome for them. They weren't meant to work with a coach anyways.
Yeah.
You know, like they might not have gotten much more out of the experience with a coach because they were able to get everything they were looking for with the $15 a month app. And that's phenomenal for them. That is some people. But most people just want to pay the 15 bucks a month and get the $400 a month results.
Yeah. Yes.
That doesn't work. And it's hard as coaches to try and navigate that because, again, as we stated in the very beginning of this podcast, we would all like more money.
For sure.
And so then you see coaches being like, oh, well, I'll do it for 50 bucks. I'll do it for, it's like, you're discounting yourself all over the place. And it's just, and that just becomes like a downward spiral, right?
Yes, it does.
Of the whole thing. Anyway, so long story short, kind of like come back around when you get to the point of the conversation where you're the right fit for each other, both as a client and a coach, you're clear on your expectations and goals, that this is what we're looking to do. This is the timeline. This is the thing. When you get to the point of that chat where you're like, here's how much it costs to work with me, say it confidently.
Absolutely.
This is how much it costs to work with me. And if they need an explanation, here's why it costs this much to work with me.
Yeah. I like that.
That's my fifth rule right there.
Actually, mine, it's very close to mine. Number 5 is no refunds.
There we go.
Yep.
So, yeah, same. Yeah, because if you're priced appropriately and you're gonna get them the results, again, as long as they have the compliance and the, you know, everything else. So
have I done my assessment? Because I don't trust you to be honest with me. Am I doing things that I know are trackable and exist on a linear progression that are founded in science? Is nutrition a part of the equation? Are you minimum 80% compliant with all of these things? If you don't get there, you lied. You were fucking off and doing something else. Like I might have, but hopefully I'm not. Or you were fucking off and also doing like a small off cycle or some shit. You lied about your diet. What?
Oh, so I was just thinking, just a client who's just like, yeah, I want to do all this stuff, and they're doing the work. It's like, you know what? Sounds like a great idea. A small off cycle.
Let's do a Russian squat routine.
Let's just do the hardest squat program ever written. Let's just chuck that on there.
People do that shit.
I know, but it was. I just was thinking about it. It's funny. It's like it seemed reasonable at the time. Like
yeah. It seemed reasonable at the time.
It seemed like a good idea at the time.
The guy at the gym who sells the shady pills told me it would work out great.
So
either something has gone awry. And so like if I fuck something up, like I do math wrong or something like that, I will own that. I will make you whole. Like you won't pay for my mistake or something like that. But if you're actually eating what you tell me you're eating, and what you're eating is reasonable for what our goals are, and you're doing the training and you're not doing 16 other things at the same time, and you've been honest about what your life is like, then I have the requisite information to be able to provide you with a program that I have a very high degree of confidence in. And one of those things has to not be accurate in order for you to not see the results at that point. And occasionally you'll run into issues with, someone's got a hormone imbalance, they got a thyroid issue or something like that. And like, oh, okay, that makes sense. You should probably get that addressed by a medical professional, But 90% of the time, people are either doing too much work for what their stated goal is, or they're not being compliant in either what their training or what their nutrition is, in my experience. And I have done it before. It's speaking about like discounting services and undermining my own credibility. I've done that thing with refunds where someone was unhappy about what happened, and I know they didn't do what I told them to do, and I felt bad because I know them, and at the end of the day, you tell me you want this thing, I'm going to take you at your word. You say you want it, cool, we're going to get after it. If I can't trust your word, then it's very, very difficult for me to build a program that I know is going to work for you, and at that point, I'm kind of getting screwed twice, because if you lie to me and I find out you lie to me and then I pay you, I give you money back because you lied to me, I'm getting screwed twice. And so that's a thing I won't do. Not anymore.
Solid.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like it.
I think I think I was right with our prediction that they were going to get 7.5 tips, because we had a solid 3 of ours overlapped.
Yeah. And if not overlap, they were close neighbors.
Yeah, they were. Yep, exactly. They were at a townhome at best.
Yeah.
Geez. Yeah, that's some good tips, some good information there for setting up a relationship with a client.
Yeah.
Maybe, hopefully. Hopefully.
And also for clients, like if you're looking to engage a coach, if they don't have rules and they're just like, yeah, sure, whatever, sign up. Here's a program. I'll send you an Excel file. Like, there's an old saying, buy once, cry once. You get what you pay for, man. So do your due diligence.
You would pay for. I would say, like, if you go to sign up with a coach and there's not like a, hey, I'm very interested to work with you. Let's like sit down and have a chat, or set up a call and have a chat with it if it's a remote thing. If there's not something like that at the beginning before you start working together, then this probably isn't a coach.
Yeah.
If we're gonna start to split some hairs on like terminology, they're probably not a coach. Like, they just might have a program where they'd be like, we'll just do whatever. Or they're so arrogant that they think that anything that they do is going to help you.
Yeah.
Like I am the one. I can help whoever. Someone who wants a 1-minute muscle up, someone who wants to take 5 minutes off their mile time, someone who wants to lose 40 pounds, I'll do all of it with the same program. Because there are some coaches like that who think that they are the best thing ever, and everything I touch turns to gold. And so just you as the client should also go in being somewhat aware and like clear about what you want, and yada yada yada.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I think this has been a solid discussion. Hopefully anybody who hears it, if you're a trainer, hopefully if you hear something that's helpful, and if you are a client looking to hire a trainer or a coach, hopefully you can come in better informed and armed, and you can have some additional expectations for that person who we are perhaps loosely calling a professional, and we'd really like them to be more professional. We got to do this more often, man.
We got to find a way to like make this more regular, whether it's like in every 2 weeks and every month or something, instead of just like whenever lightning strikes.
Yeah. Kids.
So, but kids, life, work, this, that, that's the whole thing.
Well,
eventually at some point we got to do like an in-person podcast, actually, like get in the same room together.
That'd be amazing.
And we'll accomplish nothing. Like,
oh, it'd be great. We'll do fuck all.
It'll be great.
Well, we can do it in my garage. We'll just end up doing bicep curls the whole time.
That would be great. Could you you have to be doing some exercise while you're talking?
Yes.
It's like the talking stick.
Yes.
Like you have to be like in movement somehow.
Oh no.
To be talking.
Oh
Like,
no. All right, good.
like
All right, Dr.
you have
Sammy,
to
let's
be
get this
doing
scheduled.
something. Okay.
Fuck.
Oh my gosh.
This is why we can't have nice
No, what's
things.
gonna happen what's gonna happen the entire time is we're gonna be doing whatever it is we're doing. And both of our wives are gonna be like,
Fucking
what the fuck
idiots.
are these guys? These
I
fucking
know it.
idiots.
Jesus. All right. Well, ideas for future episodes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, my friend. It was good talking with you.
Always good. Always a pleasure. Hopefully people
Mm-hmm.
got something somewhat relevant out of it. So
Fingers crossed. We'll see.
yeah.
For everyone else, we'll see you when we see you. Be well.